believe we've got everybody with us now. Michael, you there?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. All right, man. I'm just going to, that's cool. I'm just going to run through some stuff and then we'll jump straight in, okay? So give me a few minutes and then we'll jump right back to it, all right? So,
No worries. And I'd like to just apologize. I think if 25 years of marriage have taught me anything, it's probably my fault, and I'm sorry, and I won't do that again. So,
you'll know
yeah.
the finer intricacies of Discord and how much of a head breaker it can be. Let's not dwell on that. No problem, man. No problem.
Yeah, and I had my DMs turned off, as you can imagine. So it was a little bit of and I'm only one coffee into my day. So lots of excuses. If you keep me on, I'll come up with a whole bunch more. So thank you.
Awesome. We got a couple of minutes to think of a few more, man, and then we'll jump in. All right. So
fantastic.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, everyone, and a huge welcome to this week's installment of DappRadar Meets. The date today is Wednesday, April the 6th. And a huge hello to all the wonderful listeners. It's awesome to be with you all. I see you all out there. I see your great avatars. I see it all. It's awesome. So hello. Now, sometimes I am a little bit guilty of not telling our listeners what it is exactly that we do over here at DappRadar. We have people join in these chats just to kind of get involved. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, let me explain. We're the world's leading provider of Dapp data and analytics. Also, our data guides journalists and the media in the highest places. Cointelegraph to Bloomberg, you'll find DappRadar data being included there. Cool, right? It gets better. DappRadar's 1 million monthly site visitors use DappRadar to analyze dapps. Which ones are attracting the most trading volume, unique active users, and processing the most transactions. This way, you can understand which dapps and tokens are building solid communities and value on their respective blockchains. More importantly, with the release of Radar, what we wanted to do was include the community in what we build moving forward. To that end, I need to announce something else. We're going to have our first community call next week. Our community call is basically similar to what we're doing right now, except there'll be some people from DappRadar on the stage discussing our roadmap and other things, and it gives you guys a chance to jump in and start asking us some tricky questions. Not too tricky, but you know, that's what it's all for. So, when is that happening? That's happening next week, Tuesday, 12th of April, 3 p.m. UTC here on Discord. We're going to have Head of Product, Nick Rennie, Chief Design Officer and Co-founder, Dragos Danica, CEO and Co-founder, Skimantas Janauskas. It's all been moderated by yours truly, me. So we would really like you to turn up. Turn up, ask questions, listen in. That's really what it's about as well. It's like being a fly on a wall in a high-level meeting with DappRadar people. Come along. Again, Discord, Tuesday, April 12th, PM UTC. So about today. All attendees of today's AMA can grab themselves a Pope. But unlike in previous weeks where it all got a little bit tricky and bless her heart, Cornelia was having to manually distribute them to people, we've set up a robot. So head on into the DappRadar chat, the main chat after this, and you can get your Popes there, okay? Now, on to the main event. Today, I'm really excited and honored to welcome the head of WAX Studios, Michael Rubinelli. As always, we record these sessions for people to catch up later. So if you missed any of the other previous shows, you can get them on YouTube. Just head over to the channel where you find hundreds of educational, analytical videos, and they'll really help you along your journey. Michael, I'm wary of the time. I want to jump straight into the elevator pitch, all right? This is something I do where basically you got to pretend that we were in an elevator, just me and you, pretty awkward, and then all of a sudden it broke down. And you're going to and I've got a t-shirt on that says I'm super rich and I'm looking to invest in things and I'm really interested to hear about things. So we have about a minute and I want you to hit me with your best spiel on WAX.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sure. So look, you know, what we do at WAX here is pretty simple. We are leading the way for a very environmentally conscientious Web3 experience for people who are maybe disillusioned by the stories of the echo damage that comes from delegated proof of work chains. Proof of work chains, excuse me. We're a delegated proof of stake chain, which means we use way less, we have way less carbon emissions than our competitors by an order of magnitude. In fact, we're the first ever certified carbon neutral blockchain in the world. And, you know, anybody can be carbon neutral if you buy enough offsets, but we're actually carbon negative by a wide margin. And if you look at the amount of energy used to power the WAX blockchain, it's about the same energy consumption that 5 Americans use on an annual basis. So we are unbelievably environmentally conscientious. And on top of that, you know, we're the only blockchain in the world built to handle massive transactions with a level of kind of expeditious resolution that you will not see anywhere else in the world. And so when you want to do things like gaming and have really quick kind of verified transactions, there's no place to do it like Wax. And Wax can process up to 8,000 transactions a second. We've done sort of north of 30 million transactions on any one given day. We typically do 20 to 25 million transactions a day processed. And that's more than every other blockchain in the world combined.
All right. I'm interested. I'm not trying to press that eject button on the elevator 100 times over. Let's go further. Let's go deeper. So I've got a whole bunch of questions that I want to throw out at you, and they're nothing complicated. But as always, we ask the audience to step in and give us your questions. Some of these audience members will be playing your games, using your network.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let's see what kind of questions they can come up with. So as always, stick up your hand, and I'll put you on the stage, and you can ask a question. All right. But let's jump into some. Let's start from the top, because some people don't know about Wax so much, and that was a great job you just did there of kind of summarizing it all. But let's start from the beginning, right? Like I know Wax pretty well, and you're not a new protocol. And I think it's quite important to outline this from the beginning. So do you want to just give us just a little bit of history of Wax and how long you've been around and what you've been doing in the space ever since you kind of burst into it?
Yeah, so Wax has been around. I think, the really interesting thing is if you want to talk about Wax, you have to start with our founders, right? Which is Jonathan Yantis and William Quigley. Like, they've been around the industry for a really long time. And the really interesting thing that they have done is they really were the pioneers back, if you look in the mid 90s, of kind of, marketplace transactions for players. And, the first ever, I think there was I want to say 1997, there was a real massive news story when somebody in Ultima Online sold a digital house that they had bought in the world on eBay for $3,000, and nobody could believe it. It was like what is this, and what is going on?
Yeah, what's happening?
Exactly. It was really mind-blowing. Like, people are like, wait, what? A digital house in a video game sold for $3,000 real dollars? And like, nobody, like, that was, those types of things were really where Jonathan and William kind of, cut their teeth in this space as it relates to Wax and Opskins and kind of the humble beginnings of this company specifically. They went on to create kind of gold farming operations where, again, people wanted to buy currency in games. And developers and publishers didn't allow that to happen. But we knew as players that's something that we wanted to do. We wanted to sell the currencies that we earned, or we wanted to buy currencies from other players, again, because we wanted to save time and we didn't want to grind all these quests to get these currencies. We just wanted to play the game at its core. And that was really frowned upon by, almost everybody in the gaming community from a sort of a business standpoint. But as players, it was a really liberating thing, right? And so a lot of positive signals for sort of what Wax is today came from there. The earliest kind of ventures in the interactive space. So that was super interesting. If you want to talk about Wax specifically, really, it's funny, Wax started, actually, the company we started building, on top of the Ethereum blockchain, with a lot of people don't realize that. But once we did a lot of technical due diligence on the Ethereum chain, the stated goal for Wax was always to have the ability to process as many transactions as they could, as quickly as they could. And so they realized that there was a lot of blockers there. And candidly, I don't know what the prohibitions are in working with the Ethereum. I just know that when I look at, what our chain can do from a processing standpoint and what it's best served from a use case, Ethereum and Ethereum derivatives, layer twos, they just don't actually serve the purpose. And there's a ton of data that we can talk about that kind of proves that. And candidly, it's data that we get from DappRadar. I don't know, you probably realize it, but we literally pull up, when we pitch Wax every day, we pull up like 3 or 4 really key slides from DappRadar that helps us illustrate our point. People go, holy cow, I didn't realize Wax was so unbelievably dominant in the space. A lot of that's thanks to the visualization that comes from DappRadar. So I thank you for that. Just, I'd like to get that away first and foremost. It's really a wonderful thing to have that at our disposal. A third party kind of validates what you believe and kind of it allows people to vet kind of what you're all about.
That's cool. Thank you very much for that compliment. I know the CEO is listening right now, so I hope you heard that. Thank you so much. And that's what we're here to do, right? Like, that's why we have a relationship. That's why we build relationships with blockchains and dapps, is because somebody's got to do this work, right? And that's what we do. So Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So you go back to kind of 2017, 2018, when the company was really just, kind of building that infrastructure. And, William Quigley said, look, if we're going to win, we have to be the company that can scale, to the largest number of people and players to do the largest number of things any one point in time, and we never want to be limited by a technology. And so, again, if you look at, if you're just doing NFT collections, it's not a huge deal. You don't need a ton of 8,000 transactions per second, which is what we ultimately can do. And everybody else is running around, I think, 1,000 to maybe 2,000 transactions a second. And by transactions, we don't mean kind of a server-to-server handshake. We mean actually updating, the memory footprint, on the distributed ledger. And so we look at kind of what we call real transactions as 8,000 a second, and that is really, really well served if you're building a gaming platform, right? And gamers, we know, you lose. The first thing you want to do is you want to go to the store, you want to buy something that allows you to win, and not being blocked by the platform, like waiting a couple hours is not a good thing. If you're a gamer, like, I want to go right now, I want to do this right now, right?
Exactly,
If you're buying a collectible NFT, like, you get it 2-3 days later, it doesn't really matter. But if you want to buy the BFG 9000 and you want it right now because somebody just they just dabbed on you and they just blew your head off in some game, you're like, you're like, gosh darn, I want to get back there right now. And so Wax allows for that to happen. And we support thousands of dapps that are doing tens of thousands of transactions, and it's on a regular basis. And really, we do it. The key point is that we never charge any gas fees, right? And so the challenge with Ethereum's and all the layer 2s tied to Ethereum is there's surge pricing. So a lot of times it's like 2 a.m. you're out at the clubs and you're waiting for an Uber. It's like, well, if you really want to get home, it's going to cost you $85. Like, we're going 3 miles. It's like, yeah, but you really want to get home? Like, yeah, I do. So you pay it, right? Like, we're never, victimized by a surge pricing model. And like I said, on top of the surge pricing, there's also the delay in delivering the actual content to what it is that you thought you've purchased. And so, Wax's stated goal was to never allow those two things to happen. So we wanted it to be really, really cheap for the users to use, and we wanted them to get their content as soon as possible. And once they realized they couldn't build that on Ethereum, they said, okay, we have to build this on the EOS.io chain. We have to build it from the ground up. And that is our stated goal. And everything has flowed from there.
All right, nice. I really like that explanation of the surge pricing there with the Uber. It just makes so much sense in the real world, right?
Yeah.
You're so correct.
Yeah.
And to touch on that as well with gaming, I think if some people don't kind of get that, is the fact that these transactions that we're talking about in a game can be such a different varied amount of things. It can be opening a loot chest, it can be interacting with another player. So in any given moment you can be doing, well, possibly hundreds of transactions in any given gaming session. So as you said, Ethereum doesn't really suit because of the costs involved, and that's why we don't see games really running on Ethereum, to be quite honest, that we talk about often. So, and we know that like games like Axie, they switched over to their own chain,
right,
to eliminate that. So yeah, just to kind of put that out there, just for anyone who wasn't sure. And so you mentioned at the beginning, like, sorry, actually, I wanted to just mention the EOS thing, right? So at that time when you decided to build on top of EOS was quite a big deal. Like, and I'm not saying it's not a big deal now, but it has kind of dropped off in terms of its relevance slightly. Just as a kind of, I don't know, indulge me on the question. If you were launching today, things were different. Do you think you would have gone down a slightly different road, or how do you ever think about that, or do you just tuck it away?
I really don't. And if you look at, you talk about EOS isn't the flavor of the day. If you look at what gets the earned media, right, which is I release a story and all these channels pick it up, all these outlets pick it up, and they write about it. Like, there's these really big, sexy things. Oh, a Bored Ape sold for $10.3 million, or this company raised $450 million in funding, and or like, we think candidly, those are headline grabbing things, right? But if you look kind of behind the curtain, right, there's not a lot of there. Like, people talk about Bored Apes and CryptoPunks all the time, but if you look at the trading volume, they're trading, maybe 3 to 4 NFTs a day, maybe 10 on a good day, and they do such a dollar volume. It's like, it feels like a huge deal. We're literally doing 25 million transactions a day, and 25 million transactions a day at a low price isn't a super sexy thing to the, kind of clickbait, attention grabbing headline kind of, outlets that are out there. We have a real simple kind of, mentality and philosophy. If we deliver a great consumer experience, at some point, everything shifts to a merit-based kind of world, and we're happy to trade on our merits and the meritocracy that comes with really executing on our chain. And so, since it allows for the best player experience and the best consumer experience, like if you look at our Wax Cloud wallet as an example, we have over, I think the number is like 12.75 million Wax Cloud wallet users in the world. That happens because our wallet's the easiest wallet to use in the world, and it's very Web 2, and it's things that people understand. Like, it's all about the user journey and user experience. We know that people, they will embrace things that are tied to convenience and usability, opposed to kind of flashy, sexy things that maybe don't have a ton of utility in their daily world. And so those guys can grab all the headlines all day long. I'm happy to make consumers happy, in the tens of millions on a daily basis.
Great answer, Michael. Great answer. And I just kind of threw it out there because I think it's just something that I wondered personally. And I think, you're so right in regards to headlines and other things. And I think our industry is dominated by money, is like volume, sales, prices, dollar values. And that's fine. That's cool. And that grabs headlines. But as you rightly say, there's people out there doing more diligent work, perhaps, and that volume will come later, or perhaps it's not even the ambition, So, I think it's a really good point that you make, and I think people should understand that more clearly as well. And also with Wax, we talk about TVL, we talk about dollar values, but with Wax, you're not so much. Well, you've never, as I see it, really gone hell for leather on that side. It's never been something that you've ever really wanted to do. Right. Am I wrong, or is it just something that's an active decision, right? That's not where you want to go.
Well, yeah, look, I think that I think business conditions, it's like anything that's a live operated product. Like, you set out with your set of assumptions, right? You want to get an MVP into market, then you want to see how the market responds, then you want to adjust to meet those conditions. And I think the thing that we have found on our chain, if you look at it in terms of whether it's market capitalization or it's, again, the amount of press coverage. And like, people say to me all the time, "Oh, Wax, I've never heard of it." And like, yeah, we're the best kept secret, and it kills me on a daily basis. That's something that's going to change, right? And so we very conscientiously this year in January said, we're going to go out and we're going to tell the world kind of who Wax is and what Wax is. And obviously me being here is a part of that. But the thing that you're going to find us do is we're not going to go out and, like, I could easily tell you that when you look at all those Bored Apes and crypto punks that are trading for really high volumes, if you really, really, really look behind the curtain, those are wash trades, right? People are selling them to themselves through various means, and they want to do it because they want to keep the value high and they want to stay in the headlines, and dot, 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 dot. But, we're not going to disparage people that way. And we're not going to also go, sell like, hey, we're the biggest, best chain in the world. We're the fastest, most transactions. We just like to educate, and we feel like, taking a thought leadership position and just being very matter of fact, like, it's going to come off as kind of who we are. We're very authentic, right? We really believe in what we do. There's a tremendous amount of pride in the digital hallways of Wax, if you will. We're really, really proud of what we've done and where we're going and what we're all about. And we want to share that with the world. And so being much more visible and getting our story out there in terms of what we can do and how we do it, and the kind of literally the almost no cost to the consumer to utilize the platform, and all the benefits to the environment that we actually provide. Once we get those messages out there, what we find is people really come around and go, I hadn't thought about it like that, or that's really good, or that's really interesting. We feel like we're converting people kind of, en masse on a daily basis. In fact, last week at GDC, or 2 weeks ago at GDC, we had a booth that was not easy to find, and it wasn't a massive thing in the middle of the show floor, but we had over 170 different companies come to us and say, "Hey, I love the Wax story. Tell me more, and how can I get involved with you?" Like, people are finding us. Our message is starting to get traction, and we're really going to do some super exciting things, we think, in the next 12 months. So
it's really cool. Like, and I think again, good point. Like, in that kind of best kept secret in the industry, I think you guys, in a good way, have been quite arrogantly kind of chasing what you have a vision for, which I think is awesome. And like I say, the word arrogant is not a nice word, but it can be. I think it can be. I think, and it shows determination to progress in a certain direction, right? And I think that's what Wax has done really, really well. And I've been watching you guys for years now, and I see the progression. But at the same time, let's talk about what's happening this year, Michael. Like, what's going to peel back some of the layers of how you intend to get out there. I know you've got certain dapps that you want to talk about, like Blockchain Brawlers, brand affiliation. That's always been a big thing for Wax, like back in the day with the top cards and the guy from Star Trek, like Shatner. Let's go a bit deeper on that. Like, We can start with the branding stuff if you want, because I think the branding stuff is really cool and what Wax is doing there. And I think that goes back to Quigley, right? Or I might be wrong.
It does. Absolutely. It absolutely does. Yeah. So William is one of his, many kind of, illustrious stints in the corporate world before he became the entrepreneur that he is today. He worked at Disney. He worked in the licensing arm at Disney, and lots of great lessons learned there, and lots of kind of wonderful takeaways in terms of seeing what a big 240,000 person company, how it operates across multiple lines of business in a matrixed organization. There's lots of, and I was at Disney too, so I saw it as well firsthand. It's really a kind of a fascinating company. But yeah, in terms of, if you look at really a little over a year ago, I believe, the time is not quite clear to me, but I believe it was January, February last year, we launched our first Street Fighter collection. And that was first real kind of leaning. It was in the post Opskins world. And again, before Wax became Wax, we operated a company called Opskins. And what we allowed players to do in CSGO is trade skins. And skins had a lot of the early NFT kind of value in terms of provenance. Like when somebody won CSGO World Championship on Faceit, that skin that they used for their gun would go into the marketplace. People could see that such and such player used it, then they could buy it. And like a lot of the things that you see in terms of collectability and value tied to gaming and tied to utility, which exists today, were sort of born out of the Opskins experience, which William and Jonathan built. Again, it was a digital marketplace for trading in-game items. And it was a really, really powerful thing that we knew that people wanted to do. And then Steam came in and said, "Oh, we're not so sure about all this," and that kind of went the way that you would think it would go. But if you look at the shift into collections became this huge thing. We had this crafting mechanic, which felt like a gaming thing. We had Street Fighter IP, which was definitely a premium brand in the gaming space, and we had pack openings and we had rarities, and so that slot handle pull dopamine rush that people love in the gotcha games that exist today. Like all those things came together in this beautiful confluence in early 2021, and we said, "Holy cow, collections! What other collections can we do?" Right? And so we reached out and we did things with the MLB and Topps and Mattel and Hasbro and on and on and on. And then collections, they didn't fall out of favor. But then, like all businesses, there's this evolution of, I've got this NFT. What else can I do with it?
Yeah.
And then these brands start saying, okay, well, like as an example with Sony Pictures and Spider-Man and, AMC, we did a lot of things tied to, the Spider-Man release around the holidays, like your NFT is your ticket and your NFT has a unique piece of art and your unique piece of art has a mint number. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can do it. This allows me admission into a club, so to speak, right? Because that's what NFTs are. They're programmable digital keys. And what do you have those keys to do and what do they represent? And they can be tradable, they can be obviously collectible, and there's rarities to them, and it's just really kind of interesting evolution. And once we saw like the number one mint of a certain piece of Spider-Man art that was a ticket to that movie sold on our marketplace for $19,000. It wasn't $19 million, but it was $19,000. And so all of a sudden we're sitting there going, okay, NFTs with utilities tied to brands, there's something there too. And then since that has happened, again, we've done deals with, NASCAR, which was announced and executed against the I want to say the Daytona 500, which if you can get the NASCAR crowd across what an NFT is and what it does, what the value is, and that was a massive hit for them. That was a big success for a NASCAR, and they were totally thrilled. And if you go back and you actually look at the assets tied to it, they were spectacular. Like the team that we have that helps us pull these branded experiences together has some unbelievably highly produced assets that you understand the value and the interest right then and there. And the great thing is that these things drop easily into your Wax Cloud wallet. And the Wax Cloud wallet is one of the easiest things to use in the world. Like I said, we're closing in on 13 million users on our platform tied to the Wax Cloud wallet. And it's not a surprise. It's super easy to use. It's really, really powerful. And what you can do with it is unbelievable. And to kind of put a finer point on the scalability side, when we did our 10 millionth Wax Cloud wallet sign up back in December, we airdropped 10 million NFTs to the holders over like a 2-day period. Like nobody in the world could have done that in that short a time. Nobody else could have done it for as low a cost as we did it. But we said, here you go. Thank you for being a Wax Cloud wallet holder. And here's an NFT as a result. And we did that 10 million times over, I think, a 48-hour period. And that's pretty incredible if you ask me. So
big. That's intense. Like that's not regular. That's pretty incredible.
Right. Right. And we just did it. We just did it. Look, was it a little bit of a flex? I think it was, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's 10 million NFTs that we just dropped. Look at us go. But on the other hand, it really was a thank you. Like, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for kind of, riding this journey with us. It's really, really wonderful to see. And we want to recognize that. I think the thing that you'll find when we start to talk about some of the dapps and the gaming pieces is that we really lean into community. Like, community is everything. And if you discount your community or you take your community for granted, your community will know this because they are smart and they pay attention and they are maybe a little bit trepidatious because they've had rug pulls happen to them before. And so we are very conscientious in wanting to engage our consumers on a really deep level and let them know that we hear you, we see you, we want to work with you, and we want to give back to you. Because if we give back, a little bit, you'll make it, 10x, 100x kind of in terms of loyalty and affinity and all those things. So that's community is so important to us. And again, that's something you'll see time and time again. You can map back to whether it's a collection, whether it's a branded experience, whether it's a DApp, whether it's whatever it is. It's all about reinforcing the community's belief in what we do.
Absolutely. I couldn't echo it enough, really, to be honest with you. It's something that perhaps companies that grow too fast or grow too soon, they lose sight of the fact that they are built upon an army of followers fundamentally, and that those followers really are the most important. And it kind of goes back to what I said right at the beginning about the DappRadar, the meeting that we're going to have, where we just basically have our regular meeting, but we're letting our community get involved. So yeah, like I said, I couldn't echo it enough. Just something interesting that you said there about the collections, because so the Street Fighter stuff, for example, like forgive me if I don't word the question correctly, but back then, people may have made an assumption that if they grabbed a Street Fighter NFT, very quickly afterwards, it would have a value that would, 100x. And for me, I always felt that that wasn't really the objective of what you guys were doing. Was I wrong, or was it that's because we spoke earlier about values and things like that? It's all part of the same basket, right? Like, there was never an intention to flip a Street Fighter. I mean, if it happened, cool, but it wasn't the plan, was it, really?
Yeah, Ian, it's really fascinating. If you look at a lot of businesses, if you look at what their stated purpose is, it oftentimes is not kind of where they end up is not where they thought they were going to go.
Yeah.
And you never know that until you put something out into the audience. And I think if you look at Slack is a great example, right? So Slack was meant to be an in-game messaging service for players to talk to each other, and it was built inside this big MMORPG, and it was just how the players were supposed to communicate, and they used it as a communication tool internally. The game flopped, and it was a massive disaster, and it did not work. But yet, here's this $17 billion tool that they built just as an afterthought. Like, well, we should just make it easy for people to talk to each other. Like, they didn't start off to be in the voice over IP business, right, or the communications business. They want to build this, and so and that's the sort of the joy of live operations, is that you put forth this premise and you make promises and you say, this is what I think is going to happen. And this is why I believe that. And then where the audience takes it and what it evolves to is always this really interesting thing, because they will let you know kind of how they respond to your actions. But we never start off saying, okay, we're going to do a Street Fighter collection, and at some point the really legendary Ryu that's in the middle of his Hadouken is going to go for $17 million. Like, we just said, look, people love Street Fighter. They love to collect. They love to open packs. Let's put some gamification there in terms of combining and crafting. And we know that players like that. And that was this really kind of fun and interesting and engaging thing. And it really, it found its footing in that regard, but it was never like, let's make this massively kind of highly collectible things with rarities that kind of, rival CryptoPunks and Bored Apes. We just said, let's give gamers something they know and they love. Let's give them gorgeous artwork. Let's let them open packs, which is fun. And let's let them collect. And let's just see what happens. And what happens when you take that and you kind of, you operate and you add to it if there's legs there.
Yeah, I think thank you for answering that. I'm sorry, it was a little bit weird question, but I think it's quite interesting to talk about how the evolution of things. Like you say, with Slack, it's grown to now become the bane of my existence, but and I'm sure yours too. But I just think it's interesting to look at how things start off and how they evolve. And like with the collections, I kept thinking, this is really cool. And it's kind of like Wax was like an everyman protocol. Like everyone could jump in here. Like I
Right,
can't get a CryptoPunk. I could have if I'd listened to my colleagues a few
right,
years ago, but not anymore. So
right.
it's like, how do we onboard people into something that is truly fun and engaging? And I think that's really what I've seen with Wax. And like it makes sense to me that it shouldn't all be driven. The crypto space as a whole is generally just driven by value and money, right? And at some point that's going to have to give way if we want to go full mass adoption and we want people to hop in and get involved. It can't always be about the money. Like you don't, there's, it just seems logical to me that there's a gap there to be filled, and you guys are going to fill that.
Yeah. And we say that all the time, that we have to provide real utility and real value, because there's a ton of money. And if you look, I think a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, maybe more, it's the emperor has no clothes, right? It's like, okay, so what is the point of this, and what are they doing with this, and why do they have this, and why is this worth this? And like, it's a lot of why, and you can never come up with a good answer. And so the thing that we always kind of, we look at our own content, we look at our own roadmaps, we look at our own everything, is like, why are we doing this? Like, what do we believe? And we talk about all the time, aligning your beliefs with the beliefs of your consumers. If you align your beliefs with the beliefs of your folks, like, you'll have customers for life. So we always try to sell what we believe. And I like to say, borrowing from a famous marketer, he said, Martin Luther King gave the "I have a dream" speech. He didn't give the "I have a plan" speech. And so we like to talk about what we believe, and we believe providing real utility is really where value comes from, right? And so we want you to understand why an asset is in the market, or why we've built something, or why we have a partnership in place. All those things will map back to our belief system. Again, kind of, Nike doesn't sell, what you buy; they sell why you buy, right? They sell a lifestyle, they sell a belief system. Be like Mike, and Bono's, and just do it. They don't say buy our shoe. They say, buy into the branding and what we're all about. And we like to have a lot of those things kind of espoused in our values, but shown through our
True
product.
though, isn't it? That's what people buy into. They buy into lifestyle. That's what they're doing with these yacht club membership abilities. That's what they're doing. They're buying into what they perceive as a lifestyle choice, basically. And the strength of companies like Apple, for example. Again, you're not buying a phone.
Right.
You're buying that advert where all your family are smiling and the children look so wonderful and they never cry. That's what you're buying. Like, that's the thing, isn't it? So I feel you. Like, I completely feel you what you're saying. Let's dive into some dapps.
Yeah.
Recently, you guys released Blockchain Brawlers, right? So let's talk about that a little bit.
We did.
Tell us what it's all about, because the artwork is super cool. Just give us like the 411 on like what the game's about, and then like, we're talking about value, we're talking about money, and people are interested in that side of it, obviously. So what's the kind of the mechanics there as well of how people can earn and play to earn on this thing?
Yeah, look, it's really simple. We set out we looked at the competitive landscape of products that were out there, right? And they were effectively, some of them were just straight up DeFi, right? Let's stake, let's look at liquidity pools, let's understand tokenomics, let's, like, all these things that are used to kind of generate passive incomes in a way that, and that's fine. They were very sort of clear about what they want to do. And then you look, and there was a sort of an evolution of the gamification of DeFi. It's like, oh, let's put maybe a different cosmetic on top of it. Let's skin it somehow. Let's make it feel like you're quote unquote farming, or you're mining, or you're doing these things. And we're like, okay, these are passing off as games, and clearly there is a value to this to a certain sect of the audience. So why don't we do something similar? But instead of just saying, hey, we're going to build a gamification of a DeFi experience, let's build a real game. And let's start off with something that's comfortable, because they know that. The thing that you learn in UI is that you don't want to come in and say, we're going to give you the same thing, but you're going to do it 100% differently, right? Because people right away get confused. Like, I don't know how to use this, and so therefore I'm not going to use it, right? So let's give them something that's comfortable, something that they're used to, something that seems familiar. It's not threatening. But behind the scenes, or in the roadmap, let's slowly take this and let's evolve it into a real game, right? With winning and losing and leaderboards and PvP and real prize pools and tournaments and all these things. Let's give it a story. Let's give it kind of a living set of stories. Let's pull the community into that. Let's do all these things. So this first MVP that we released last week was all about building confidence. here is something that you're used to seeing. Now, we think that it's more fully featured. We think it's got better usability than anything in the market. So right away, we're saying, oh, I play a lot of games like that. Nothing works like this. Nothing looks like this. Nothing sounds like this. Nothing performs from a CPU standpoint like this. Like this is not like anything I'm used to. Right away, we've raised the bar, and that was our intention, is to raise the bar for everybody else in the space. Like if you're going to come with an MVP and you're going to try to do these things, you can't do it any better than we can. And we're going to be the standard bearer. And then we're always then going to be competing with what we just put out. So that's kind of the premise. And over the next, 3 to because I just put out a 12-month roadmap. Like we're going to add things that are more gaming, that are more meaningful, that are more meaty, that are more engaging, right? And there's a lot of reasons for doing that. But all of a sudden, you look at this like, okay, I'm comfortable with the MVP. The roadmap is super aggressive. It's going to evolve to being this really interesting game that I want to compete in, right? Where my intelligence and my commitment to the product matter. Like now, I tell people kind of the first day is always the worst day, and people are like, yeah, no kidding, that's how it should be. But the point is, be patient with us. Your patience will be rewarded. And whenever you decide to kind of on-ramp into Brawlers, whether it's day 1, or it's day 31, or it's day 365, like it'll be better and different than anything you've ever experienced in the space. That is our stated goal. And so far, I think we're exceeding those expectations, and continue to be really, really excited about kind of the future of what Blockchain Brawlers is. And I know there's a lot of words. You asked me another question. You can jump in and respond, or I can answer your second question. How do you earn in the game?
That's a whole other thing. I mean, I'm just looking at the metrics on it now, and I'm looking at Blockchain Brawlers. You're up to nearly 5,000 active wallets connected over the last 7 days. It's a really good, decent performance for something that's just popped out. It's and like you say, you've got a roadmap that's super aggressive, and you want to go forward. And I think almost I'm thinking out loud here that the audience is slightly different though, right? Like you might get people who hop in thinking, oh yeah, I can just button bash and make money. You don't want those people, do you, really? You're not looking for that audience as such. If they join, cool, but that's not the audience. This is more of I actually want to play a game, and the earning capacity is kind of a kicker, and something, and that's just how the world is kind of evolving. So it does make sense to me in that regard. And like the numbers are speaking their own volume, so that's pretty cool. But in terms of earnings, so let's take it there for a minute. Let's pretend I'm this guy. I've just come in. I've got big starry eyes, and I want to think I'm going to flip $1 million in a week. Give us some reality.
Lambo when, moon when, we obviously hear that all the time, and I see a lot of my friends from Discord are in here from the Blockchain Brawlers Discord, and they're wanting to hear me answer this, although they may not like this. Like when we modeled this initially, we didn't model the token appreciation or the asset appreciation to the level that it was. We had very humble sort of thoughts. Like because we focus more on the play side and less on the earn. Like if you play this long enough, your earnings will be, we think, your time will be well rewarded for the engagement with the product, right? So we've never said, come in and you're going to make a ton of money and this is super profitable. That's not how we speak, because candidly, that's not how we think. We think that if we build a really fun to play game that is more of a game, then that's just what happens over time, is that you will earn things that have value in the secondary market. Like that's a really, really powerful thing to think about. It's like, oh, wow, my free time is the most valuable thing I have in the world. But if I spend my free time with you, you will recognize that and you'll reward that. Okay. Again, aligning beliefs, right? It happens to be a game about wrestling. It happens to be a game about crafting and collecting and progression. But we believe that if players spend their free time with us, their free time will be rewarded. That is our belief structure. And the first 7 days, Ian, I'll tell you, have gone so much better than we thought, in terms of, if you look at the performance of the assets. Like as an example, we have an in-game item called gold. It's an NFT that drops randomly between 3 and 11% every single time you hit the brawl button, and you brawl once an hour per player or per slot in your ring. If you have a legendary ring, that's 8 slots. So it's 8 times an hour. You can pull a handle and you can get a result. And so if it's an 11% chance to win a gold, you may be getting gold, 1 piece of gold every single time that you brawl. So we thought, okay, that's probably worth, $50 to maybe $100. And that seems about right. And we did a lot of modeling based on that. Well, on the secondary market, gold is going from anywhere from, $330 to $400 per gold, not 50.
You didn't see that
400. And so we did not see that one coming. So that changes your perceptions and calculus. And we thought, okay, well, this will die down with, as the market starts to flood. Well, the market has flooded, and we've sold like I want to say 10,000 pieces of gold so far. Not we haven't sold it, the players have. That's the beauty, Ian, is that we actually sold very few packs because we wanted this to be a player-to-player economy, right? We believe that. We have 30,000 people in our Discord, I think, or 31,500 people in our Discord. We sold 750 packs, and we did 200 auctions or 300 legendaries. So call it 1,050 NFTs to start playing for an audience that had 31,000 people in channel. So we had way more demand than supply. And we did that because we said to the players, hey, look, this is your economy. This is your world. We are clearly at risk. We could have sold way more, and we did not. Like, if you look at our friends, Mr. Molyneux, he does this big land sale around his game, and he gets $150 million. Like, okay, he's under no pressure to perform. He's got your money, and in 3 years, you'll maybe have a game, and you can look at his track record. And I know Peter, and God bless him, he's brilliant at what he does. But where's the risk for the developer there? There's a ton of risk for the players. What we said to our players, look, we have a ton of risk. We need you to perform. We need you to buy and sell and craft and earn and repeat. And we are showing that risk alignment by selling very few packs. And I think the audience has responded, the community has responded beautifully with how they've worked together to build kind of, earning sheets and on and on and on, and what optimal paths, depending on what your play style is. And it's really worked. If you look at the asset appreciation on the secondary market, it's been incredible for our players. So these packs that, contain a brawl and a ring, that was a $350 purchase. And those assets in there, we thought, okay, in aggregate, those two things add up to about $350 worth of value. Now those things in aggregate add up to about $10,000 in value. And that was nothing that we priced, we drove. That's the players setting the market pricing, setting the demand levels, setting the supply levels, and the market working as free market economies work.
Well, it's awesome to watch a community rally around something like that. Do you think that you spoke about these kind of GameFi dapps as well? Like there's quite a few that are popping around, and like you say, it's a gamified layer on top of fairly complex financial instruments. Let's be honest, like it's not that everybody understands, but I kind of like it because I think it's educating people. Do you think your community kind of understand what they're learning there? I mean, we're talking about creating markets, creating supply and demand value, and do you think they know that, or do you think they're just like, we're playing a game? Like, this is cool. You know what I mean? Like, is it?
I think to answer your question, it's a mix of both. I think the thing that's really interesting that we try to do is, again, if you go back to our desire to educate, like people came in and said, where's your tokenomics report? Where's your white paper? Like they've been taught to ask for all these things that are the wrong things, right? They're dangerous because we're not GameFi, right? We're not DeFi. We are a game. So they say, what's your tokenomics? We understand, we want to understand block emissions and deflationary measures and, all those things. And we know that is complicated, as you said, and we know that can be confusing, but yet we know the path to growth is acceptance. We know the path to growth is convenience. We know the path to growth involves a lot of frictionless things. And so we very intentionally remove things from our game. We don't talk about depositing. We don't talk about withdrawing. We don't talk about deflationary measures. We don't talk about block emissions. We don't talk about any of these things that are going on behind the scenes. We actually take those things and we simplify them or remove them, or we speak in gaming terms, right? So we talk about activation. We talk about in-game inventory. We talk about crafting. We talk about collecting. We talk about winning and losing. We talk about all these things, or maybe not losing yet. We will in a second when we get to PvP. But we talk about things that people are used to hearing. But we do it in a way where we're sort of saying, this is what you should ask for, this is what you should expect, and this is what you should understand. Because what was happening is they were getting these really complicated tokenomics reports and white papers, and they were trying to make an assessment of whether they should invest in this or not. And that is so hard to do. Like it's impossible to do, before something is out and before you know what the market conditions are. And we just sort of said, we're not going to have you go through this exercise, because there is a non-zero sum chance that you're going to get it wrong. And you're going to make a decision whether to engage before actually even playing our game. We said, look, play our game. All those things will be known. And then you can make a decision based on real data, not based on, I think this is going to happen, or I hope that's going to happen. Like, let's get you in there and see what, the earning is per brawl and the gold drop rates are. Let's see what the market conditions are. Let's see what the token price is. And then you can make decisions whether or not you want to invest your time into this product, right? Operate off of real data, not hypotheticals. And that's the thing that we wanted to teach people to ask for and to
You've
expect
actually
going
created
forward.
what I would refer to as a gamified white paper. In mobile gaming, they called it like.
Well, it's Ian. It's so funny. People say, I want to see your tokenomics report. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to know? What do you want? They're like, I don't know, but I've been taught that that's what I have to ask for. I'm like, well, do you know what you're looking at? Well, not really, but I can look at. Well, what can you look at? Well, I can look at token distribution. I mean, okay, 80% of our tokens are going to go to the gaming community. 20% are going to go to, back to into user acquisition kind of activities and so forth. They go, what about, private funding? What about ICOs and IEOs and IDOs and IDOs? I'm like, none of that. They're like, well, why not? Aren't you supposed to have those? I'm like, what do you mean, aren't we supposed to have those? Well, everybody else has those. I'm like, but we're Wax. We're $1 billion company. We don't need this kind of fun. They're so taught to be suspicious and to ask for the wrong things that when we say we don't have them, they're like, I don't trust you. I'm like, well, why not? I don't we're here. We're transparent. We're
universe, right?
we're not.
You're doing all the right things from what you thought is the way to gain trust, but actually, because of the way the industry's laid everything out, people are a little bit suspicious when there isn't a white paper. It's crazy, really. I think of that as a situation.
Right. It really is. So again, we look at it as there's a lot of teaching moments, and we just want to teach people kind of in this world what to ask for and what to expect. And again, something as simple as me just being visible. There's a lot of teams from parts unknown with people you don't know doing things that you don't know what they've done. It's like I'm going to dox myself because I know that I have been and I will continue to be a kind of a target of social engineering. But I want to build credibility. This is who I am. This is where I've been. It's not like come at me, bro, but it's like we want to build confidence. We don't want to hide behind, just again, I think kind of just transparency and candor and openness and honesty is what it's all about. And so that's what we're trying. That's how we're trying to win.
There briefly, like you say, you're $1 billion company, and just to kind of talk about that, you've got a blanket of luxury kind of there in that regard, that you can operate in this way, whereas a lot of entrants to the space are perhaps working on a shoestring. They really need to sell out that 10,000 NFT collection, or this project is going to go down the toilet, basically. And that when that kind of pressure is on you financially to deliver, it probably makes people do silly things, right, and get into silly behavior. But I think it's a great thing. There's projects that we see on DappRadar, I watch them pop, I write about it, and then 2 weeks later it's vanished and it's gone and it's a flash in the pan. I think that was something I really wanted to ask you about, is the kind of what we're seeing now, and what I'm kind of keeping an eye on is retention in this area, because getting gaming retention, especially mobile gaming retention, is a huge metric that we're not really discussing here when we talk about dapps. We look at the wallets that are coming back and the unique amount of wallets that arrive, but retention is going to be super important. And if you just put a nice picture on top of a DeFi dapp, it's only so long that's going to entertain people, right? So how do you go about your retention, and do you think it's important, or do you think it's more important to onboard new players continually? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, no, look, I think that the challenge that people have in this space is sometimes they look at user retention like they would in a free-to-play game, where you can leave really easily because the price point is free to, you put 99 cents to buy some in-game currency. You're not really super pregnant with the product, so to speak. But when you're spending, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, or in case of our auction winners, $30,000 to $40,000 into a singular NFT or the ability to play, retention becomes less of a concern. Well, I just dropped 40 grand, I'm going to leave tomorrow. Like that helps, right? Candidly, that helps. I will tell you that we treat every player, whether they're put $40,000 in or they're contemplating coming in, we want to make sure that we are treating everybody the same, and that we want to always give you reasons to come in and try and then ultimately stick around. We don't want the fact that you're sticking around because you feel guilty, I've got so much, I have to stay. We don't take that for granted in the least. And so it's really, really important for us to make sure that it's a curated experience. It's really thoughtful. It's well messaged. The thing that I'll say though, Ian, that again, you touched on a little bit with kind of the selling the 10,000 NFTs because they need to fund, the product. Well, what happens is like we see this all the time, a really, 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 really big, free to play mobile company had a launch on, I want to say it was OpenSea a few weeks back, and they went to sell 10,000 NFTs and they sold 7,800 of them. And they're like, okay, now, the game's going to go out there and, go ahead and buy and sell things on the secondary market. Well, everybody who wants to play your game had the chance to buy an NFT to get in, and they didn't. It's sold out. So where's the secondary market demand, right? So we see that all the time. So if there's no secondary market demand, which means there's no appreciation for the assets, then all of a sudden people are like, okay, this project is doomed. And that's a fair comment, and that happens all the time. Second point is, like, some people will go out and they'll sell their 10,000 NFTs or 20,000 NFTs. They'll get a bunch of people in, and then there's exploits in their economy, right? And then all of a sudden, their game gets botted to hell, or the economy, like the token price goes to the floor, and there's exploits that exist that you didn't realize because you're a small developer, or you're maybe not a classic game developer, and you didn't realize that once you get 10,000 people playing for an hour, it's probably 10 times the amount of testing you've had over the entire life of the game is then experienced by your community in the first hour. So if there's holes in your economy, if there's holes in your player experience, whatnot, if there's exploits to be had, they will find them and they will expose them. They'll communicate about them. Everybody will do it. And your house will be on fire while you're out, eating a nice dinner somewhere, and you come back and you have no game. Like, those are the two experiences that we see that inexperienced developers make. And, the benefit is we've done this for such a long time. Again, there's a method to the madness in terms of what we do. And, people aren't always going to like what we do, but we do things for the benefit of the player. And they may not realize that initially, but ultimately I hope that they come to appreciate it, because that's always our goal.
I think the first point you made about this kind of psychology of the sellout, I think, is really vital. One of my friends said it to me the other day. He said, I've found this new collection. And my first question to him was, did it sell out? And then I thought, you idiot, Ian,
right.
You're falling into that same old bag. But it's just human psychology, isn't it? Queues breed queues. If there's a queue outside the club, you think it's popping. I used to run clubs. We used to pay people to do fake queues, right, so it looked hot out inside. That's the truth, right? That's what we do. So queues breed queues, and I think that kind of sellout psychology, where it's like, okay, it hasn't sold out, so therefore it's worthless. That's really dangerous, I think, in my mind. That's quite dangerous to be at a point already so early on in the evolution of this space where people are thinking like that. Hopefully we'll evolve past it and it'll become a lesser thing. But I just thought it was a really interesting point as well. I mean, coming to the end, Michael, I could literally, we'll go for a bit longer because I know you were late, man. Let's carry on a bit more. But you mentioned earlier you had the booth and people were coming over to you, and trust me, I feel you on these booths. They promise you the world, right? And then the next thing you know, you're next to the toilet. So you just have to make the best of it, right? So if we've got people out there in the DappRadar community, in the wider community generally, that are looking to build such a project, is there an inroad to working with WAX currently, or anything in the pipeline where, for example, a person like me could approach with my team and be like, here's my project, this is what I think about it, and then receive some kind of real guidance and basically what we've been talking about for the last hour, sat down and told the realities of this whole thing? Is there a road in like that, or is there a plan to have something similar, or are you keeping it kind of in-house for now?
Yeah, no, there really is a plan. And, I tell people it probably helps to think about us like Sony PlayStation, right? We're a gaming platform, and we're going to put out first party content that shows off the power and the sexiness of our technology. But yet we can't do this alone. We don't want to do it alone. So we have second party deals, which second party is kind of defined by, companies that we're making investments in because we really like their project. And then there's third party deals where companies come to us and said, look, we have, all the funding in the world. We actually don't need your help funding. But what we don't have is whether they may not have, blockchain integration experience, and they may not have the ability they want access to our nearly 13 million WAX Cloud wallet users. Like, there's all these things and these services that we offer that can help their project be a success. And we engage those people all the time. And the thing that you'll find, in fact, in May, I believe, some point around hopefully mid to end of May, we're going to publish kind of a report or do an announcement around some of this other content that's coming onto WAX. And some of it may be first party things that I'm building. Some of it may be second or third party, things that, we're investing in, or things that we partnered on. And so the WAX Publishing Partnership Program, which the WP3, the W3P, let's just call it the WP3, is we're going to start to shine a really bright light on it once Blockchain Brawlers is up and running and really kind of finding its stride, and we're kind of operating at a high level, we're going to start to not shift the focus, but we're going to start to show the world, if you liked Blockchain Brawlers, this is what else we're doing. Because again, credibility matters, and we're really, really hesitant to just endorse any project. We know a lot of chains out there are throwing big checks at a bunch of games just in general, just because they need the content. We don't feel that sort of desperate to do those kinds of things, but we are going out and we are making strategic bets. So we're going to give those games and those opportunities a lot more kind of visibility, I think, in the next kind of 6 to 8 weeks. So stay tuned there. But if you wanted to reach out to us, it's real simple. Just email partnerships@wax.io, and it will go into an email account, and our business development people review all those things. And we're actually really good at responding really quickly. We're pretty easy to get on the phone, and we're pretty kind of candid about what we want. If you're building a game that's great, we want to work with you. Like I hate to sound so, rudimentary in our demands, but we're like, oh, we've got this really sophisticated tokenomic system and we're going to do that. Like, just is this game really, really fun to play? And can you prove it to us? Because we look at content of, we want it to be a great game. If it happens to be on the blockchain, then that's great. Like, that's how it has to be viewed. It can't be a case of, hey, here's a great blockchain game. Like, we don't want relative great. We want objectively great. Like, we want to go up against Clash Royale. We want to go up against Dota. And we want to go up against all these other games. Like, it just so happens our game's on Web3, but so what? Like, that's the mentality you have to have. And look, there's give and take with all those things, and how do you make this work? But the reality is, in kind of 3 to 4 years' time, I don't believe there'll be a single game that comes out in that time frame that doesn't have some version of what it is that we're building in Blockchain Brawlers in terms of participation model, or what we like to call the player-to-player economy. Like, that's where the world is going. There's no stopping it, and the sooner you learn it and get educated about it, the sooner you'll start to win in that regard.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, Mike, I had to jump in because Ian, electricity ran out, basically, so he's not with us anymore. So, okay. So maybe, first of all, I want to say super thank you that you have joined us today. And yeah, do you want to say any final words for our community?
I don't, other than I'm sorry that I was late, but I'm here now and happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And thank you for listening in.
Super. Yeah, don't worry about being late. I know that Discord sometimes has some troubles and so on, so all good about that. Yeah, anyone has any questions to Michael? Okay, so if not, again, I would like to say a big thank you for joining us today, to all of you guys that you joined this great AMA. Thanks, Mike, for introducing our community with WAX and talking more about Blockchain Brawlers. That is super interesting. Guys, if you want to hear more about Blockchain Brawlers, or to to explore WAX dapps more in depth, you know where to find it. All information is in our blog. I'll be sharing their official links back into the general channel. So you will find all the accessible information there. So thanks again, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.